Hello and welcome to the Susan Lopresti Wellness Mind, Body, and Soul podcast, the podcast where we uncover the root causes of health challenges and empower women to take charge of their well-being naturally. I'm your host, Susan Lopresti. I'm a certified health coach with years of experience in health and wellness, energy healing, as well as a breathwork practitioner. Each week, I bring powerful conversations with leading experts in functional medicine, nutrition, longevity, fitness, mindfulness, and holistic healing to help you thrive through midlife and beyond. If you're looking for practical, science-informed strategies to boost your energy, support brain health, balance your hormones, improve your metabolism, reduce stress, and age with strength and confidence, you're in the right place. Today's episode explores some of the simplest yet most powerful tools for improving your health, your breath. I'm excited to welcome Andrew Keaveney to the podcast. Andrew is a breathwork and meditation coach, filmmaker, and educator with the Art of Living Foundation in the United States. After graduating from Stanford University, he spent 4 years living in an ashram in India, immersing himself in the ancient practices of yoga, meditation, and breathwork. That experience shaped his passion for helping people to access greater health, resilience, and inner peace through the practical, science-backed techniques. When he returned to the United States, Andrew helped launch the Art of Living Retreat Center, which has become one of America's premier wellness destinations, and it's on my bucket list of places that I want to go to. Today, he continues to make these powerful practices accessible to people around the world through workshops, coaching, and digital media. His meditation videos have attracted more than 500,000 views across social platforms, helping thousands discover simple, effective tools to reduce stress and improve well-being. Andrew is also the filmmaker behind a compelling micro documentary exploring how breathwork is being used as a supportive intervention for individuals recovering from opioid addiction in America's Rust Belt. His work highlights the growing recognition that healing begins by addressing the root causes of stress, trauma, and nervous system deregulation, not simply managing symptoms. In this episode, we'll explore how intentional breathing and meditation can transform physical and emotional health, improve sleep, increase energy, reduce anxiety, and help us build lasting healthy habits. We'll also discuss Andrew's Dry January Mindful Edition initiative that's designed for those who are sober curious and looking for healthier ways to manage stress, improve their mood, and create meaningful lifestyle changes that extend far beyond January. If you ever wondered how something as simple as your breath can become one of the most powerful tools for healing, resilience, and living with greater intention, you won't want to miss this inspiring conversation. So, without further ado, Andrew, thank you so much for being here today. I am so honored that you chose to come on my podcast and share your wisdom with my beautiful listeners.
Glad to be here too. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Andrew, you graduated from Stanford, and then you made this unusual decision to spend 4 years in an ashram in India. What inspired that path, and how did those years that you were there change your understanding of health and happiness and purpose?
It was a big change, both in the journey to go there. It was a different path, But like you say, it changed a lot how I thought about health, how I thought about happiness. To start off, I was doing two things in school. I was studying, I was also working on the side, and I was exploring meditation. And I kept trying different methods. And then I found something called sky breath meditation that really worked for me. Something clicked. And I
Mhm.
thought, okay, I've got this. I'm graduating. I've got this time. I can either go for the corporate ladder or for grad school, or take a little time to dive deep into silence, into contemplative practices, into yoga, and see what it's all about. And so I took the leap and I said, okay, why not go to India? Art of Living was hosting a silent retreat there. So I went to this beautiful meditation campus in Bangalore. And then I said, okay, let's go deep into this. And so I stayed. I just kept extending that experience. Two of the main things that shifted, one was understanding that our mental health and mental happiness, how internal that is. So
Mhm.
often we come in life and we have some trauma, some experience, some memories that may keep us unsettled. And we get so focused on the past and trying to deal with that, or wrestling or struggling with our own mind, that can leave us in a very state of unhappiness sometimes, not intentionally, but seeing how much of a difference meditation, these and breath work made in the mind. And so, regardless of what happened in the past, transforming our future through transforming our own mindset. I think that was the biggest shift that I
Yeah.
got in India, and this really wealth of a rich heritage of a yogic and meditative tradition that they've kept alive for centuries and millennia. It's a big gift to humanity, I think.
Yeah. Do you think that there are misconceptions that people have about meditation and breath work?
100%. I know I had misconceptions when I came into it. I did, my mom did. I think oftentimes there's still a bit of a latent idea that it's a either a cultural experience or a religious thing
Yeah.
somehow, and that it might conflict with whatever religious tradition we're brought up in or practice. And that was a big one for me to cross over because I grew up in a very strong Christian household, and I had this conflict. Oh, if I meditate or explore these things, is it a conflict? And then you see, okay, everyone wants to be happy. Everyone wants peace of mind. This is a gateway to get there that doesn't ask you to believe in something, but it's really open to everyone. So I think that was one misconception that stood with me as a youth that I was able to move past.
That's interesting. So, in our society today, we hear so much about stress. Everybody's stressed out practically. What's actually happening inside our bodies when we're under chronic stress?
I think you make a good point there. What's happening in our bodies? Sometimes we think, oh, this is happening in my mind. I feel stressed. At the same time, there's that book, The Body Keeps the Score.
Yes.
The body's also accumulating and holding on to some of these tensions of experiences that we weren't quite able to process at the time. Maybe something is too intense, or we're just not focusing on it. Whatever it may be, through the years, we accumulate stress and tension. And the medical association says that so a majority of illnesses have stress as a correlative factor that is somehow
Wow.
in the mix. And so that can lead to higher blood pressure. It can lead to higher cortisol rates. Cortisol is such a mixed thing because it can give us an energy, it can give us
Hmm.
a push. But what happens is with an overaccumulation of stress, we get locked into that mode and we don't rest. So even when it's time to rest, many of us find ourselves still in go mode, right? In rush and let's do this. So that's one thing I found meditation helps us to decouple that link so that we can let go, we can rest when it's time to rest, and not be stuck in a drive mode all the time.
Yeah. I know for me, when I'm stressed out, I actually feel it physically more than emotionally. So, for example, I could feel the energy inside of my body vibrating. And sometimes I don't even realize what's the trigger, what happened to get me to this point. And so many people actually stay stuck in fight or flight.
Yep.
I'm able to get out of it at times, but what are some ways to alleviate that?
I had a similar experience where I was doing a silent retreat, and then there's this moment where through the silence, through all the meditations, deep meditation, it purifies a lot of these stored up impressions and tensions. Suddenly I released, I think it was like a muscle in my back or shoulder, and I realized I'd been holding that for years
Yeah.
without even knowing it. And so we have all these subtle impressions that have built up. And the way we let go of them is, I found some of the most effective tools. One is through the breath. Sometimes when we have tension, just going through the mind can be hard,
Mhm.
right? Like when you tell yourself, don't be angry, it doesn't always work, or just go to sleep. Does that
Yeah.
work?
That doesn't work either.
Right. But then we find out, okay, there's a back door, so to speak. If the front door is blocked, go through a back door. And you see, okay, when I do this breathing technique for a few minutes, and there are many of them, okay, this one helps to put me in a more restorative state. Okay, this one helps to have less mental chatter. And like that, we say that the mind is like a kite, the mind and emotions, and the string is like the breath. So even if you don't grab onto the kite, move it directly through the breath, we're able to start to manage our mind, our emotions, and let go of a lot of those long-seated tendencies and things that we're struggling with.
Yeah. So are there certain meditations that help with certain things that are going on in your body? Like, so let's say if you are in a panic attack, is there a particular breath work that helps with that versus someone who's trying to fall asleep, but it's just her mind is racing or his mind is racing?
Yeah, it's a great question. Recently, I had a pretty cool experience. I was tracking some of my health metrics with one of those watch wearables.
Yes.
I noticed my recovery had gotten really low, like my sleep, my recovery scores. It was a very intense period. And then afterwards, I started doing these breathing techniques for sleep, right? It's like this breath and anxiety. It's called the sleep and anxiety protocol. So I started doing that every day before bed, a few minutes of a particular breath work, a short meditation, and a body scan. And it was amazing because literally within days, my recovery scores just started going to the green again.
Wow.
And what I've noticed is that it's great when we can get 6, 7 hours of sleep. Sometimes when life gets tight, and even when I'm getting less sleep, the depth of the amount of deep sleep, the amount of REM sleep, all of that gets a boost by
Mm.
doing some of these breathing practices. And then, of course, there are others for, like, we teach something called sky breath meditation, and that raises the baseline on so many things. So it's not just at that moment where the panic hits hard, but raising your baseline so that there's higher brain function, there's a drop in cortisol levels, so that we're more resilient and less likely to get to that crisis, that severe point. That I found is really useful as well. That baseline practice.
Yes. Because once you get to the severe part of it, it's really hard to rein it back in at that point.
Right? It's like if
Yeah.
wellness, when we get to the point where we have to be in the ER,
Yes.
it takes a little extra work to get back from there. You need a very intense intervention.
Yeah.
But if we can do these little things that take a few minutes a day that keep our energy and health uplifted, we're much less likely to get to that point.
Yes. So, how does chronic stress affect our hormones, sleep, weight, memory? I hear that that's also an issue, immune health. How does it affect all of this?
Lots is going on there. So when we are experiencing chronic stress, and this is part of the difficulty with it, is that we don't necessarily have the tools to handle it.
Right.
Everyone has stress, right? We have stress from colleagues, from family, whatever it may be. And that would be fine if there's a way to process it. Otherwise, it piles up. And that's where we get into these things like chronic stress and the issues that come along with it. So that we see that when people don't have a way to process negative emotions or fear or anger, whatever it may be, that's when the sleep gets interrupted. So many people these days they're going to bed, but the mind isn't turning off.
Yes.
Or we're going to bed, and even if we're closing the eyes, it's very unsettled sleep. So there's so many interruptions that happen. But if we're able to deal with the stress, then we can restore some of these natural, healthier sleep patterns.
Mhm.
And also immunity gets affected when the body's on this constant drive mode and not able to step back into recovery mode. It's burning energy, right? Like the phrase burning the midnight oil.
Yeah.
I realize it's not just about the hours we stay up and our output, but that midnight oil, that candle is our body, it's our physiology. When we keep pushing, 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 we're actually decreasing our access to, you know, energy and vitality and really a vibrant state of being. And so we need some things to as a countermeasure to balance it out.
Yes. I know a lot of people who have high powered jobs and they get very little sleep. They're working constantly. And I don't know, at some point, that kind of lifestyle is going to catch up to you and end up with some kind of an illness or disease, either physically or emotionally, for sure.
Yeah, there's this saying that we spend half our health to gain our wealth, and then we spend half our
Mhm.
wealth to gain back our health. But if we can just keep them in balance more, then we
That's
don't
so
need to
true.
get to that point. It makes you think, right?
Yes, that's so true. So, the other thing I wanted to talk about is breathing. We all breathe every day, we're not even conscious of it. But why is it so important to learn the correct way of breathing? And how many people realize that there is a correct way? I mean, we just do it, but what is the correct way to breathe exactly?
It's a remarkable point. I hadn't thought about breathing myself until I sat down one day in an Art of Living course and was like, okay, now let's talk about the breath. And I thought, the breath? I'm already breathing. This is the other way that stress and chronic stress can impact our physiology is our breathing capacity also gets constricted. You've probably seen this in people's postures or even when we reflect on our own experience and we see, am I fully breathing? Am I using my full lung capacity? Have you seen a child breathe like a little baby and then
Yes, their
right?
stomach, yes,
Rise like a little balloon.
yes.
And then sometimes we see that, okay, years later, what's happened? Somewhere along the line, the breathing may have become quite shallow or just is not totally in rhythm, right? In that natural harmony. What's fascinating though is that we can use rhythms of breath. That's what the sky breath meditation is based around, using rhythms of breath to restore the harmony in our mind, in our body, in our emotions. And so it's working with the breath, both opening up, expanding more of that natural lung capacity,
Hmm.
but then seeing how playing that with that connection of the mind and the breath, because it's a two-way street, which is really fascinating, where when we feel a certain way, maybe you've noticed, we also breathe, it changes our breathing.
Yes.
Someone's angry, how do they breathe? It's more stilted, a little harsher. It might be faster.
Mm-hmm.
Someone's sad, low, how does the breathing change? It comes a little like long, like the exhale might be longer. And so people have actually looked into what are the correlations between breathing patterns and emotions. And then these breathing techniques, it's an ancient technology where it's using the breath to make that a two-way street. Okay, our mind doesn't just affect our breath. By working with the breath, we affect the mind. That's the essence of it.
Yeah. What about poor breathing? How does that contribute to disease?
I'm not a doctor by any means.
Right.
What I have seen is that when the breathing is less, what are the functions of the breath? So one of the less understood or focused on functions is the breath is also how we cleanse out a lot of toxins,
Yeah.
right? We're aware we breathe in oxygen, we breathe out carbon dioxide. When the breath becomes constricted and isn't fully expressing, one, we're not bringing in as much energy as we should be. And then second, we're also not releasing and expelling as much as we could be. And so both of these things in their own measure help for a full state of vitality and well-being. When we're breathing in, there's a term in Sanskrit called prana, which means
Yes.
the life force energy. Okay, you've heard of it, Susan. Yeah.
Yes.
And the prana is connected to the breath. When we're breathing in and breathing in more prana, that also helps our energy to be higher. All these things can also help with immunity and proper immune functioning. There's some great research that shows how sky breath meditation has led to increases in immunity. And then the other side is when we're fully using that breathing capacity, we're letting go of more of this stuff that's floating around the body. Imagine that we just kept piling the garbage up and we didn't take the whole thing out every day or every week. We just took out the top one quarter and then we kept piling more on. So, eventually that accumulation can also contribute to that feeling of not being at ease in our body, but also these more major complications that can come up.
Yeah. What happens in the brain during intentional breathing?
The brain is fascinating. My favorite study about the brain and Sudarshan Kriya sky breath meditation showed that over time, there was actually an increase in gray matter, right? So,
Oh,
one is how does the brain increase and improve coordination, neurological processes, all that's happening, but it's even growing an expansion of volume. Like your brain is getting bigger in some cases with certain breathing practices. So I find that fascinating.
now you've mentioned sky breath breathing a number of times. What exactly is that?
That is the most studied breathing protocol that research has currently looked at. There's so many types of breathing techniques out there. Sky breath meditation is kind of the leader in the number of studies. There's a 200 peer-reviewed studies out there on this particular protocol, and it's using rhythmic breathing cycles
Mhm.
to affect the mind and emotions and restore harmony in a more balanced state.
Well, that sounds nice.
Yes. And my experience of it was interesting because I'd been hopping around and testing a lot of different meditation platforms and techniques and trying to make it work. And I kept trying, right? I was efforting myself into meditation.
Mhm.
After 4 or 5 years, it started to work. I would sit for 30, 40 minutes and you experience more calm, your body settles. And then I did this breathing practice, and within 10, 20 minutes, it put me in this very different space. It was like opening up another dimension of experience. And I thought, okay, this is what I was reading about that I was looking for. that I wanted to experience. So beyond the numbers and the research and the data, which are fascinating, the experiential quotient is just really beautiful as well.
Sky breath meditation.
Yes.
I have to look that up. Yeah.
Yeah.
And how does breath work affect the nervous system?
So that gets really interesting. You mentioned a little earlier the flight or fight,
Yes.
and there's this autonomous nervous system. We've got the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. I was discussing the other day with a friend and just how do we put these things in simple terms? So, for a layman's understanding, we have the go mode, like the drive is like the brake pedal, the gas
The
pedal in the car.
gas. Yeah.
Right. And then we have the parasympathetic, the more restorative, which is more like the brake pedal. And so often we get caught in go mode. So that's where these breathing techniques, meditation, yoga, all of this is such a useful counterbalance because here we are disengaging from the go, go, go and doing practices that physiologically trigger more of that parasympathetic rest and restore state. So naturally, the body does it at night, but if we got too much going on, these things can really help to enable that to get it functioning more properly and just being a bigger part of our experience.
What about inflammation in the body? It helps with that as well.
I haven't seen so much research personally on the inflammation aspect. So, yeah, I'm not as aware of what's going on with that.
And also heart rate variability. Do you see that as an effect, positive effect?
We do. And
Yeah.
that's another really popular metric that science is seeing a correlation with longevity and overall wellness. And there is some really interesting research going on that shows how it does improve the heart rate variability. And of course, we're looking at a full spectrum of what makes a good life, right? So
Yeah.
definitely that combination of some exercise, physical activity, and the right diet and getting enough sleep. And what I find really beautiful in this almost renaissance that we have of this resurgence of practices of meditation and breath work is this bringing another crucial key ingredient to the table. So it's not like a replacement for getting a good night's sleep. It's not a replacement for exercise. But when you add it on, it
Right.
makes such a difference. Like it's that added layer that brings things together, but also adds that beautiful element with stimulating the parasympathetic system for more rest and restore.
Yeah. So my audience is primarily a woman over 45. So they're in perimenopause and menopause. Why is breath work especially important during menopause and beyond? What's your
Yeah.
feeling on that?
Especially at times when the body and mind are going through major changes. Those are some of those moments where we especially want to ground into activities and practices that, again, raise our baseline, right? There's one element in us that element of resilience and wellness, right? Like if we wanted to find that as a core, the stronger that we can keep that core stable and full of energy and life and joy, beyond just the physical, all the other changes that are happening on the periphery in our body, in our mind, emotions, we become better able to handle and respond to these.
Yeah.
So sometimes I think of the metaphor of the when you raise the water and it raises all the boats,
Yes.
right? So this is, one of those key things that is raising the water for our wellness, our vitality. Sometimes wellness can sound a little try, but our vitality really. So how do we keep that vitality strong and glowing and even as we move into older years and as changes are happening. Does that get at it, Susan?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Now I want to switch gears because also a lot of my listeners, as women in midlife, are concerned about brain health and Alzheimer's prevention. And can breath work help to improve brain health? And what happens to the blood flow in the brain when we're in slow breathing?
So two things. One, I have a friend, Dr. Ronnie Newman. She's based in Florida. I think she's in her 70s now, but you wouldn't know it, right? She just has so much energy and she's been doing these practices for decades and also does some research around them. But the idea that we can not only stimulate the intellectual side of our brain, because sometimes we think of the brain as the intellect, and definitely that's important. Things like memory and awareness, but then also just that youthful element of awareness and alertness, right? So that's where the breathing is a very interesting one too. When we're doing it, in the process of doing it, it's doing to our something to our system. The main results happen afterwards, right?
Oh,
So they did a really interesting study where they were measuring people's physiological responses to the breath work. And the biggest changes were in the rest period after the breathing. So whenever we're teaching this, we'll go through it with people, we'll do the practice, and then we leave this rest period afterwards. And then that's one element, is that the rest after the breath work is when all these things start to kick in gear, right? That the other element is that over time, a lot of the benefits accumulate. So we've seen that in the period afterwards, that's where we see more marked changes and drops in cortisol levels. We see an increase in deep sleep. There was a really fascinating study that was done in Italy where people had already gone through medication and it hadn't worked for them for depression, then signed up for this study where they went through this breathwork protocol. And there, over the course of 4 to 6 weeks, even for people that medication hadn't worked, there was I think 40 something percent, and we'll have to get the exact numbers, but there was a really strong recovery rate in that community. So even things like anxiety and depression, which are happening more, on the level of the emotions and also the physiology, those are also areas where we see improvements, as well as the increased neural functioning and gray matter expansion that we mentioned earlier.
wow. That's fantastic.
It's remarkable. And
Yes.
it really feels like we should be talking about it more. So that's why I love having conversations like this with you, Susan. But
Yes.
if people knew that, okay, there's a tool that I can have in my own hands that I can do that makes sizable, measurable improvements, that's a big gift.
Mm-hmm.
We're not limited to pills we buy off the shelf or expensive gadgets. Yes, it takes a little time investment to learn the first time. You have a tool for life. And that makes such a big difference, I find.
It really does. And then you incorporate meditation and breath work with a healthy diet and a healthy lifestyle, and you're really setting yourself up for success.
For the
Or,
long term, exactly.
yes, yes, I love that. And many women, they carry a lot of stress, caregiving, or unresolved emotional pain. How do you think that trauma is stored in the body?
I lead retreats at the Art of Living Retreat Center here in
Yes.
Boone, North Carolina. And it definitely pulls at my heart sometimes because so often we get women that come through and they say, this is the first time I've taken time for myself in the last 18 years. And women, especially, are putting so much into jobs and the household and taking care of a lot of people, as you said,
Yes.
caregivers. And so having that restorative functional toolkit, it's a big joy to share with people because then they go home feeling okay. Now I'm empowered with this other tool I can use for my own self care so I can also continue to do what's important to provide for my family and my community. And so they really, I find, go hand in hand.
Yes, I do too. So tell us more about the Art of Living retreat.
Yeah, it's a bit of a dream for me because I went to middle school and high school in Tennessee, Memphis, Tennessee, where my mom is from. And there was nothing like this in Tennessee at the time that I was aware of. So when I started having just some change of ideas and wanting to find ways to tap into inner peace and not knowing how, my recourse was the public library where I would find books. But it's been really exciting that in the last decade, we've built this beautiful retreat center in Boone, North Carolina, in the Blue Ridge Mountains. And it's become this home for people from all over the East Coast, all over the country, really, to come for a weekend, a week, and learn practices and skills that they can take home with them to support a more vital, joyful life. That's essentially the nature and goal of the place. And we
Yeah.
have beautiful programs that are offered every single week. There's the Art of Living programs that we teach. We also invite authors and presenters who come from across the country to lead their workshops as well. So it's really melded together to create this great community. And now we have more and more of a alumni network around the South, around the country of people who have come through the center and keep coming back with their friends and family, which is especially, it's good to see.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. It sounds like a much needed for a lot of people who are very high energy and always going to just recharge their battery and learn some techniques to relax and restore and get back into balance.
Exactly. And so often our idea of a successful vacation, it involves traveling somewhere, and that takes time and energy. I just came off of a long flight. Sometimes you get stuck at the airport,
Yeah.
and then the vacation is nice, but you might get tired by the time you get home. You're like, I need a vacation from my vacation.
Yes,
So here, really, the goal is to reverse that a bit so that the time away nourishes you for years to come, and at
I
least for the
love
year
that.
ahead.
Yeah, I love that. What advice would you give someone who feels overwhelmed by emotions?
Mm. First, not to fight it. I think we spend so
Oh,
much time fighting and struggling with our mind. Why am I feeling this way? We get more upset that we're upset by our emotions. So, first, not to fight it. And then, if we're not fighting it, okay, we still don't want to stay in a state all the time. Realizing that emotions are temporary. If we're aware that we're sad, it's because we've had another time when we were not feeling this way. So also not thinking, oh, I'm going to feel like this forever, right? We
yeah.
don't want to get into a negative mindset about it. And then having a way to process it. So going into our toolkit, and I really think on a daily basis, like the shower we do for our body, the brushing the teeth that we do for our dental health, in the same way, having a daily process for our emotions or mental health and well-being that finds comes really strong through breathwork and meditation.
Yeah, that's great. Any final thoughts, Andrew, that you'd like to leave my audience with?
Susan, any final question or anything I've missed that you'd like me to?
Actually, one thing I did want to touch on, I know that you created a documentary of helping people recover from opioid addiction. What inspired that project?
That was two things. There was this beautiful story where a fellow teacher in Ohio, she was a, this might get me a little emotional, but we'll get through it. She was going back to her hometown to take care of her parents. And she would, it's a 3 hour trip. She would drive there 3 hours, spend some time with them. And then she saw that people in her hometown were really hit by the opioid crisis. People she had gone to high school with were passing away. A lot of people were really struggling. And
Mhm.
so then she started just making this regular trip back and forth from Columbus to her hometown to offer these programs, this breathwork and meditation. And she found that it made a big difference, that it was helping people in the recovery journey. So we were talking about it, and I said, we should create more awareness about this. So we went over there in the winter, right before COVID happened, and we talked to the people that had participated in the programs. She'd also gotten a grant to do a study through Ohio State University to measure the outcomes of this. And we talked with one of the scientists that was on the research project, and also community leaders to see how it was impacting the community, both the opioid epidemic, but also interventions like this. And it was really powerful to see people that wanted to make a change, but
Mhm.
were struggling with the how. And addiction is such a thing that even just wanting to make the change isn't always enough.
Yeah.
And so putting the tools in people's hands where it's like, okay, this is something I can actively do day to day. And I think one of the most moving things I heard back was, this has given me the space to discern between what's going to help me and what's going to hurt me. And he said, when I was in active addiction, there was no space. It was just to the action. So it's giving people that space, that discernment to be able to make healthier choices and to escape the cycle of addiction. So that's what the video is about. And it was a joy to work on. And yeah, it really puts you in touch with people who are, really just making the best effort they can to make a change.
Yeah.
That was the other thing that was so gratifying, is when you meet people who have reached rock bottom. And like one guy said, I was ready for it to end. He said I would shoot up and hope that maybe this one ended it for me.
Wow.
Yeah, and you hear stories like that. And then when they're at such a low point and they see something, they experience something that makes such a big difference, then there's a lot of appreciation that comes with it.
Yeah.
So I love the sincerity with which some of the community, the addiction community, has taken to these practices is so inspiring and encouraging.
And it must be very rewarding to see the transformation in a lot of them.
It really is. And especially when you see those things like, 5 years down the line,
Yes.
or, you know, hey, this is my 1000th day sober. I've been sober 2000 days. And they share like how they're taking care of their family, or they started a new business. And it's really exciting.
It's a gift. It's a
It
gift
is.
for them, and it's a whole new lease on life. And it's a beautiful thing. And I think that's a great way to end this episode today.
Yeah.
Andrew, thank you. It was such a pleasure to meet you. I will reach out to you to get all the information from you, websites, and all of that to put in the show notes.
Sounds great. And pleasure meeting you as well, Susan.
Thank you very much. As we wrap up today's conversation, I hope you're walking away with a renewed appreciation for something we often take for granted: our breath. It's available to us every moment of every day. Yet, it has the power to calm our nervous system, quiet our minds, support our physical health, and reconnect us with ourselves. A heartfelt thank you to Andrew for sharing his wisdom, his journey, and the practical tools that remind us healing doesn't always require something very complicated. Sometimes the most profound changes begin with one intentional breath. If this episode inspired you, I'd love for you to share it with a friend, family member, or anyone who could use a little more peace, resilience, and hope in their life. And if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to Susan Lopresti Wellness, Mind, Body, and Soul. Leave a review and follow the podcast so you never miss an episode. Your support helps us to reach more people who are looking for trusted information and practical strategies to improve their health. You'll find the links to Andrew's work, the Art of Living Foundation, his meditation resources, and his documentary in today's show notes. So be sure to check those out. Remember, true wellness isn't about chasing perfection. It's about making small, consistent choices that nourish your mind, strengthen your body, and uplift your soul. Every positive step you take, no matter how small, moves you closer to a healthier and more vibrant life. Thank you for spending this time with me today. I'm Susan Lopresti, and it's truly an honor to be part of your wellness journey. Until the next time, take a deep breath, take good care of yourself, and keep living with intention, vitality, and joy. Be well, and I'll see you next time on the Susan Lopresti Wellness Mind, Body, and Soul podcast.